add like make a tea with a little water. And put that in. That's well.
Resume.
You think what salt would kill it? Right, well, any kind of salt would kill it. That's what they did.
Let me pass out two handouts. One is from last week, and this is where you can find the talks that I gave this fall at St. Anthony's on YouTube. They're all on YouTube. All you do is type in my name and my name of talks and it'll come up. For those who didn't get one last time, and this is a handout on what I'm talking about today: diabolical afflictions that are extraordinary. So help yourself and maybe take an extra copy and give it to people that you know profit from it. The devil actually would rather just tempt us than afflict us extraordinarily. Because when you are afflicted in extraordinary where the devil is manifested, he'd much rather stay, as I say, stay hidden. So he'd prefer just to keep tempting us and not necessarily get involved in things like possessions and other things we're going to talk about in a second. Because that manifests himself. He shows himself, so you know he's there, you know he's active. He'd rather not. The great French poet Baudelaire from the 19th century said, the greatest trick the devil pulls is to make us think he doesn't exist. Then he can do anything he wants and nobody will ever think he's behind it. So he doesn't want you to believe in him. And sadly, you even have some theologians, including Catholic ones, who poo-poo the reality of Satan, and yet that's clearly heretical thinking. Church definitely believes in angels, definitely believes in fallen angels, and definitely believes in the devil. Christ himself expelled demons many times in Scripture. Speaking of which, the case of Joanne, this young woman of 30 years of age, she was married with children, she had these constant headaches, this constant fatigue. She couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. She'd go to the doctor, and the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with you physically, I've checked you out, you're perfectly healthy. And yet she kept having these headaches and this fatigue. And then they started doing a little digging. They found out that she was possessed by 3 demons because a jealous woman, apparently this woman married someone this other woman was jealous of, she wanted to have him as her husband, and he said no to her and said yes to this woman, just Joanne, and she was violently jealous, and so she put 3 curses on this woman Joanne. That's what was causing her illness. It wasn't anything physical. It was the demonic actions. And she eventually, was freed of that, but it took some digging to find out what's the source of her illness. It finally ended up being something that was demonic. Because the devil can certainly cause physical ailments. There's many, many cases of that in the history of exorcisms. Now, remember that famous scene in the Gospel of Mark 5:120, where Christ is faced with this demoniac who's possessed by, it says, a legion of devils. A legion of devils. Well, remember, devils, spirits, fallen angels do not occupy space and time. A legion in the time of Christ, a Roman legion of soldiers, was over 5,000 soldiers, between 5,200 and 5,500. So we're talking about over 5,000 soldiers in one legion. So this person had 5,000 demons inside of them, at least 5,000, a legion. And again, they don't occupy space and time. There's no limit how many devils can possess you. Remember I told you the story about St. Dominic, the one who gave us the mysteries of the Rosary, given to him by Mary. Famous story of this man who was making fun of him, making fun of his work, trying to combat heresy, especially the Albigensian heresy, and he was possessed by 15,000 demons. 15,000. And so Dominic said, let's pray the Rosary. They started praying the Rosary. For every Hail Mary, 100 left. So if they got through all 15 decades, all the devils were gone. 15,000 were gone. So the Rosary again shows you how powerful it is as a way of expelling demons. Now, a few things about who can do these exorcisms. And when you're dealing with possession, it calls for an exorcist. Every bishop is an exorcist. by virtue of his consecration as a bishop, he is an exorcist, so he can carry out exorcism as a bishop. A priest cannot, at least not today, according to canon law, unless he's appointed by his bishop. The bishop is supposed to appoint a priest to be an exorcist for a diocese. Now, many dioceses have not done that. They're supposed to. The bishop is supposed to appoint someone in case there is possession or some other affliction. You know, it wouldn't have to be possession, it could be something else. And they're supposed to do that. Many of them don't do that. I think they don't take the devil seriously. That's part of the problem. But you choose someone, you choose an exorcist who is a holy priest, a smart priest, a prudent priest, very prudent, wise, and obedient. You look for those characteristics in the person you choose to be an exorcist. You don't broadcast his name. You keep it pretty secret. You can find out. I mean, if you went to the diocesan channels, you can find out, but it's not broadcast. Don't put it in your paper or something, or diocesan paper. No, you keep that pretty much a hidden thing. Exorcism is a sacramental. It's a sacramental, like holy water is, and like the crucifix is, and like holy ashes are, and like images of Mary, for example, icons of Mary. It's not nearly as powerful as confession. You think about it. A sacramental is not nearly as powerful as a sacrament. Every priest, by virtue of hearing confessions, has more power over the devil than an exorcist does. Because exorcism is simply a sacramental, whereas a priest can drive out all those sins through the sacrament of confession. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Okay? Sometimes I think we forget that. Now, once a person is possessed, there's usually a significant change in them. A significant change, if they truly are possessed. They often will attack family members. They will terrorize people. They will mutilate themselves. They'll attempt suicide. They'll disappear and come back in a daze. They will write bizarre things to you. They'll speak languages they've never studied. Remember that language thing again? Those are some of the ways in which a possessed person will act. Now, a possessed person is incapable of asking for help. If they're actually possessed, they're incapable of asking for help. So they're not going to go to the local priest and say, I need help. It's up to the family to get help for that person. Because they won't do it on their own. At least not normally. They will not do it on their own. They'll stay away from anything that has to do with a priest or anything that's sacred. They will stay away. So it's up to us to help that person. Because that person is in need of spiritual help. And they can be helped. That's one way of healing someone's soul. And their body in some cases, is in this case for sure, is by treating them with compassion and getting the right resources. Namely a holy priest who can talk to them, confer with them, and help them. Now there's what we call simple exorcism and solemn. Simple is simply driving away the demonic influence. Every time you baptize a child or an adult, there's an exorcism rite, isn't there? Now why is that? The little baby has original sin, therefore the little baby, as cute as he is, or she is, does not have God's grace in his soul, her soul, or his soul. Therefore, you pray the exorcism prayer over this child to drive away all demonic influence. That's called a simple exorcism. It's part of every baptism. Because that child is not yet in the state of grace. Once they're in the state of grace, it's a different story. Once the original sin is taken away, now they have grace for the first time, and it's a whole different story. Now they're born again, as we say, with God's life in them. A solemn exorcism is the kind I'm talking about, where you call in an exorcist to do it. And they use what's called a Roman ritual. It's an ancient book of prayers that you pray to drive away the evil one, or evil ones. Many times it's more than one. And they use that particular book, those prayers in that book, to carry out an exorcism. Sometimes it takes a long time. It can take weeks, months, even years. Sometimes it can happen in a matter of minutes. Every situation is different. Everyone's different. Now, don't confuse deliverance with exorcism. A deliverance prayer, which they're very popular today, probably because of the way things are going. Any priest can pray deliverance prayers over somebody. Even a layperson could pray deliverance prayers, let's say, over a family member or something. That's very different than exorcism. Exorcism is quite different. Now, when you pray over someone, there's a technical word for it. I'll use the simpler word. You're requesting that the devil stop influencing that child, that person. Let's say it's an adult, could be a child, could be a teenager, could be anybody. You request it. The key word is request. That's a deliverance. You do not command the devil to leave. That is a big mistake. You see, you don't have the power to do that. You're not an exorcist. You don't have the authority of the church behind you. You see, when an exorcist works on someone who's possessed, he has the whole authority of the church, in a sense, behind him when he does what he does. You don't have that. You're a layperson, let's say. But sometimes people in their either enthusiasm to help someone, they will get carried away. I remember really one story with this girl. They had this gal had a girlfriend, and she thought that she was afflicted by the devil, and he commanded the devil to leave, or she did. She commanded him. He used the word command, and she got possessed. You don't mess around with the devil, because if you just do this on your own, the devil's not going to like it. He's going to attack you. That's exactly what happened. He attacked this girl. She was trying to do the right thing. She thought she was doing the right thing, but she was making a big mistake. You can request deliverance. You cannot command deliverance unless you are an exorcist. You see, when an exorcist drives the devil out, he does it in the name of Christ. I say in the name of Jesus Christ, get out. The devil has to leave. But you don't have that power. And if you use that power against the devil, he will attack you. He does not like it. He will not let it go. He'll go after you. And that's happened any number of times. So you cannot command, you can only request if it's a deliverance prayer. Okay, possession. That's the worst kind of diabolical affliction. That's extraordinary. There's 4 kinds, and we're trying to get through all 4 of them in lickety split time. The second one is called diabolical vexation. You know, if you vex someone, you disturb them, you cause commotion in their life, you kind of rile them up. That's vexation. It's the best way of describing it. It's oppression, oppressing someone from the outside, outside in. Okay? It's not possession when the devil actually possesses someone's body. It's when the devil tries to frighten you or afflict you from the outside, going in. That's called vexation. And this happens in many, many different ways. And many of the saints went through this, experienced this. This can happen, again, through anything that's occult. That's kind of the portal. The devil's looking for an opening. So is it a seance? Is it tampering with witchcraft? Is it Ouija board? It could be all kinds of things. And then he will try to afflict you. How does this manifest itself? Remember the movie The Exorcist? Now that was a very sensational presentation by Hollywood. They got a lot of facts wrong. In the movie, it was a girl who was possessed, and her head spinning around and all that stuff. That's all Hollywood stuff. It's not realistic, it's not real, it's not what happened. It was actually a boy who was possessed. He was, I think, about a 15-year-old boy, 14 or 15, and he was not a Catholic. He was from a Midwestern town, and the parents didn't know, they thought there was something wrong with him, they didn't know what to do, so they went to a Catholic priest, and they wanted him to help him, and he ends up being helped by 2 different exorcists who finally, after a long period of time, drive the devil out of him. But it took a long time. It took months to do this. But one of the manifestations, this would be vexation. This is that oppression from the outside in, you might say. He would notice scratches on his chest. Sometimes words written on his chest, like blood marks, like words across his chest. Or bruises, burns, broken bones sometimes. Throwing up, believe it or not, nails. Throwing up all kinds of objects. Yes, that's happened many times. Throwing things up that you think, how'd you get that in your stomach in the first place without causing serious harm? Yes, that happens. It's happened many times, not just a few times. This young man, in fact, one time this one who's a namesake for the movie The Exorcist, he's looking at the mirror in his bathroom, and he's got his shirt off, and all of a sudden words start coming across his chest, like somebody's writing words on his chest. just as he's watching. They're just scratching these words on his chest. Well, that would be diabolical vexation or diabolical oppression, coming from the outside and afflicting your body. Sometimes these afflictions can be during your sleep, these diabolical vexations. People have terrible nightmares in which they're cursing God, or they're joining the devil, or it can happen in your sleep too. And it can happen in dreams. Devil can affect you in that way. Or maybe you're damning God, or you're damning your own soul. That can be a manifestation of diabolical affliction, we call oppression or vexation. I mean, the lives of the saints, there's tons of examples. I mean, Padre Pio was literally beat up by devils. You know, he'd go off to a little hermitage next to the monastery, and he'd come back all beat up, like somebody got in a barroom brawl. He was bruised and everything. Well, the devil was literally attacking him. John Vianney, the patron saint of all priests, the devil was constantly vexating him, constantly oppressing him. One time he even set his bed on fire. And he makes strange noises. That's another sign. Strange noises in the house. You know, windows opening and closing. There's nobody doing it. Doors shutting and closing. Appliances all of a sudden going haywire. Computers going haywire. Electrical appliances going haywire. Those can all be signs of vexation. All of them. St. Paul himself, St. Paul the evangelist and the great apostle of Rome to the Gentiles, remember when he talked about in his second letter to Corinthians about having a thorn in the side? He said, a thorn in the side, he said, and it's the devil who is beating me. And he says he's doing it because he's trying to keep me from being too elated. Being too elated. So even Paul was afflicted. I would call that a vexation. He called it a thorn in the side. He never really explained it, but it was some kind of a constant affliction he experienced. And he said God sent that because he didn't want me to get just too big in the head with what I was doing. Too elated, he said. Okay. Another quick example. This is more subtle. This is still diabolical oppression or diabolical vexation. Go with both names. Sometimes the devil wants to cause in a more subtle way, and it's still external. He's trying to cause division among people who normally wouldn't be divided. Say a couple is engaged to get married, and all of a sudden they have all these fights. They loved each other a couple days ago, and all of a sudden they hate each other. What caused that? Can he do that? Yes, he can. Well, people who are friends at work, and all of a sudden they don't like each other. Can that be caused by the devil? Remember, he's always dividing. Yes, he can, and he does at times. Anything he can do in the most deceptive, subtle way to divide you, he will do it. He does not want you to be united. That's the second one. So the third one is diabolical obsession. Obsession. So we have oppression and an obsession. This is disturbances that are more internal. If oppressions or vexations are more external, they're like the scratching on your body and the strange noises and things like that. This is more internal. Deals more with your mind. And there again, strong hallucinations can be caused by the demon, if you allow him to. In other words, if you create those portals again. It's always dependent on whether or not you create those portals. But he will do these things in order to disturb your peace. Sometimes like obsessive things. You can't somehow get away from these obsessive, compulsive kind of attitudes. That can certainly be diabolical. Imagining strange creatures in your dreams, in your visions, monstrous creatures, horrifying animals. Oftentimes the devil, because he doesn't have a body, when he does appear, he appears with an ugly animal's face. Ugly animal's face. Think of Fatima. When the three children of Fatima were shown a vision of hell by Mary on the 13th of July, 1917, Mary opened up her hands, and the light went through her hands, and the earth opened up, and they could look down into the earth, and they could see hell. Souls are falling into hell like snowflakes. And how did the devil appear? Like ugly animals. Images of ugly animals. That's how Lucy described it. Ugly animals. which reminds me of a quick story. It involves a pretty well-known individual. I think he's since died. His name was Louis Kismarek. He was the escort for the Fatima statue for quite a while. He was a Michigan businessman, so a really down-to-earth, common-sense kind of guy, not given to wild ideas, common-sense businessman. He was asked to be the escort for one of the two Fatima statues, which travel all over the world. And he took one of them around, and he kept it in a big case. It's a wooden image of Mary that, as she appeared at Fatima, what she looked like at Fatima, keep it in a big wooden case, and then he would take it around the world as the escort. Well, he tells a story about his trip to some city in Ohio. I think it might have been Toledo. I forget, Toledo or Akron, one of those cities. And he's taking the statue with him, okay? And he gets there, gets to the airport, and this priest meets him at the airport, picks him up, and they have to take the statue off the plane. It's pretty large. It's in a wooden case, like that tall or so. They have to kind of very carefully take it off the plane. And as they're doing it, all of a sudden he himself was helping, all of a sudden he felt pushed from behind. And he almost lost control of it. It would have probably broken apart. At least the outer case would probably have been broken. And he looked to the priest and he said, "Oh, I think we're in for it. I think the devil does not like this. He does not like this at all." And so they got the thing off the plane, the statue off the plane, put it in the car, and he drove to the parish where he was going to give this little mission, this short mission. And so they took the statue, took it out of the case, put it into the church, up in front, right by the altar, and then he was going to sit right in front of the statue of the altar for Mass that evening. This was in the afternoon, so like getting close to the late afternoon. And they go into the rectory after they put the statue in the church. He goes in and the priest says, "Here's your room for the night." So he takes him to this room and he's unpacking his stuff. It's just getting to be twilight. So it's just starting to get dark. It's not yet dark, but it's just starting to get dark. And he's unpacking his stuff. He looks up and looks out the window. All of a sudden he sees these four ugly animal faces looking at him. He sees them looking right at him. Four ugly animals. He doesn't say what kind of animals, he just says animals. And he just kind of jumps, he's just kind of frightened. And he's going to run out of the room. As he turns to run out of the room and get the priest, he hears this glass shattering. And then by that time the priest has come down in the room, and they see the glass all over on the ground. And right where those four faces were is where the glass was shattered. But it wasn't like somebody threw a rock through the window. It was like somebody took a glass cutter and cut four perfect holes. Now how can you do that, four perfect holes? How can you do that? That's impossible. And then he knew, and the priest knew too, he says, "We're in for it tonight." The devil really hates what I'm doing. He hates the fact that I'm spreading devotion to Mary, and that night he was going to talk about Satanism, the double whammy. And so, so they were forewarned. They knew they were in trouble. I mean, spiritually speaking, it was warfare. So, that night, they're going to have Mass in the evening, and the people are filing in for Mass, and the church is packed with people. I mean, it's like packed to the gills. He goes up to the front, and he has the first seat in the front, right by the statue. Statue's here, he's here. Altar's there. And the servers come out, and they light the candles, 6 tall candles, okay? And then, right before Mass is about to start, everything got very quiet in the church, as it should before Mass starts. It should be very silent, total silence. And all of a sudden, mind you, the church was full of people. All of a sudden, you know what it's like when you're walking in the woods and you step on a branch and it kind of crackles, makes kind of crackling noise in the middle of the woods or something. All of a sudden, they heard thousands of branches breaking like that. I mean, it was so noisy, it was deafening. And they looked at each other and said, "Who's causing this noise?" There was no branches in the church. The noise was just getting louder and louder. And then, to top it off, they looked at the altar, and one by one, the candles went out. Boom, boom, boom. Nobody put it out, just went out. Boom. All 6 went out. And then they turned like this, right angles like this, and then bent back like that. This and then back. They all saw it. The whole church saw it. As soon as the Mass started, everything calmed down. The devil stopped afflicting. He went on with the Mass, and then after Mass, he spoke on Satan. But he said he wrote this in a book. He wrote several books. This is a book called The Wonders She Performs. And he said, I saw with my own eyes, the whole church saw it. We weren't all hallucinating. We saw it. That again shows you the power of the evil one. He can manipulate the natural world to a certain degree. He manipulated those candles to make them go like this, and they'll actually go out. And then of course he caused that noise too. Can he do that? Sure he can. You bet he can. Like he can make a body float. He can, if God lets him. Let me get to, I'm already over time here. Let me get to, for sure, the last diabolical affliction. I want to make sure we got extraordinary. We got possession, we've got vexation, we've got obsession, and now we have what's called diabolical infestation. Infestation. This is the disturbance of places like haunted houses, objects, animals. Demons, like I said, can attack all sorts of things. They can attack appliances, they can attack computers, they can make lamps go out, they can cause footsteps where there's no foot, there's nobody walking. They can do all those things. That's all infestation. But think about that scene, that famous scene in the Bible, in the demoniac, when the devils don't want to stay in this person. They don't want to be going back to hell. So he says, okay, I'll drive you out, Christ said. And they went to this herd of pigs. And the herd of pigs then went down in the water and drowned. It says 2,000 of them. This guy had 2,000 devils in him. But notice they went into the pigs. The pigs got possessed. That's infestation right there. Animals can be possessed. And certainly, probably the most obvious example of this would be haunted houses. Are houses haunted? Yes. Usually by the devil. Not by the person who lived there when, let's say, most people think, well, somebody died at this house, they were killed at this house, they were murdered, and their spirit haunts this house. Not likely. Very unlikely. It's probably the devil. The devil is probably haunting that house, or devils haunting that house, because maybe something very occult went on there. I remember reading a story about this person whose house was haunted. They thought it was haunted. They had just purchased this house. They just built this new house. And they couldn't understand why they were hearing all these strange noises, and they were, things were happening. Like at night, all the lights would go on, and nobody turned them on, and they couldn't. What's going on here? And they thought they were kind of losing it. And here they found out that the construction workers who built the house were involved in the occult, and they do occult practices in the house as they were building it. And nobody knew about it. It was all secret, but the devil knew it, and that's how he got into that house, and he stayed there. That's how it can work. Let me, I'm already over time, so I better kind of wrap it up for those who have to leave early. But let me just end with this, end on a note of hope. So we've got, these are all, again, these are all extraordinary diabolical afflictions, these 4 categories. And sometimes you're going to see more than 4 categories, but those are the 4 major, sometimes there's like a subdivision. Those are the 4 major ones though. But still, the ordinary way the devil tries to tempt us is through temptation. That is by far and away his usual weapon. But sometimes he will use extraordinary afflictions if we allow him to. We give him that portal. But let me end on this hopeful note. Just recently, the Pope, Leo, he canonized a saint that maybe some of you never heard of before, Saint Bartolo Longo. Longo, Bartolo Longo, Italian saint. He died in 1926. In the middle of the 19th century, he was from Italy. He went to law school, and he got kind of taken away from the church by joining some secular organizations that were very anti-church. Ends up leaving the faith, becomes very hostile to the faith, and then gets into the occult. He gets into all kinds of things in the occult. But as often happens when you get in real deep, as he did, the ultimate is to turn to the devil himself. So not only did he become a Satanist, he became a Satanist priest, mind you, a Satanist priest. That's the ultimate. That's the ones who offer, black mass and things like that. But he was very unhappy. He was miserable, as you can imagine would be. He was just a miserable person. And he was thinking about suicide. He was suicidal. And somebody introduced him to a Dominican priest, a good holy priest. And this Dominican priest taught him how to pray the rosary. Or I should say, reminded him to pray the rosary. I think he knew how to pray, just didn't do it. To pray the rosary. And that was what it took to get him back on track. Not only did he come back to the faith, but he became a zealous promoter of the rosary. So much so that when John Paul wrote his letter on the rosary in 2002, at that time he was blessed, he wasn't a saint yet, Bartolo, he called him the saint of the rosary. Now here's a man who was a Satanist, and now he calls him the saint of the rosary. Because once he had this conversion, he just never turned back, and he ended up a remarkable Christian witness, Catholic witness, and he built, well, I think it's this, he helped build, I should say he helped raise money, to build what is still considered the largest church in the world dedicated to Mary and the Rosary, called the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary in Pompeii, Italy. And that was Bartolo Longo's work, and he and his wife and other people too helped raise the money. And he just became an incredible missionary for the Rosary and everything Catholic. But it shows you, again, amazing grace, the grace of God. You never give up on anybody, no matter how bad things are or how bad they are. You never give up. As long as there's life in you, there's still hope. And there's hope for change if you cooperate with God's grace. So if God can turn Bartolo Longo, a Satanist, into a saint, he can do it to anybody. So never give up on people. Keep praying for them, sacrifice for them, but have a healthy respect, not a fear, because if you're in the state of grace, you're praying and you're doing all the things you're supposed to have, again, the devil fears you. It's just the other way around. He fears you because you're armed. It's when people are not armed and go into battle unarmed, that's when they get slaughtered. And I mean slaughtered. And as it's pretty obvious when you look at the world today, there's a lot of slaughtering going on because people are not praying, they're not going to church, they're not praying the Mass especially, they're not going to Eucharistic adoration, they're not being virtuous, they're flaunting the Ten Commandments. All those things lead to victories for the devil in their souls, not the ultimate victory because God's already won the victory. He won it on Calvary and the devil knows it. So we should be, people, again, of hope because it's always, whenever there's discouragement in your life, it's always from the devil. Always, without exception. There's no other way to say it. It's always from the devil. Let me mention 2 quick books here. I got 3 of them. I'll mention that next time. I think he was visited here a couple years ago, but I really highly recommend The Exorcist Files by Father Carlos Martins. He brought, I think, relics to this church. He takes relics all over the world, but he's also an exorcist. This book called The Exorcist Files, it's on the list that I handed out to you, so you don't have to write it down, it's on the list. I think this is the single best book to explain the demonic in a broad way. He covers every aspect of it, and he does it with great